We are on vacation next week because I'm going to be out of town and I will be going to the Diddy trial.
The Diddy trial?
Yes, because I'm flying into New York and I will be going to the trial. You know? Should we
if you can get into the room?
Yeah, no. So they have 2 overflow rooms, and it's because only pre-approved certain types of journalists are going to be in the actual courtroom, but everybody else, if you get in line early enough, you get to go in the overflow room. So that means I'm gonna have to get in line early. Now, there are a lot of homeless people that live around the Federal Building in downtown Manhattan. So what people have been doing is paying a homeless person to hold their spot for them in the morning. This is one of the reasons why I do love New York, because it's a million and one hustles. It is legal. So today we could just do a little brief Diddy thing. So last week was juicy because the Cassie. Today, one of his former artists, she took the stand, and honey, the defense, he pulled in another defense from the YSL case. And that black, I think she black, I don't know, but that woman tore her up, honey. It took her whole thing to pieces, broke it down. So, and then who else? They interviewed Cassie's friend. She wasn't saying much. And actually, let me pull it up this way because Peter is there, and I like the way he gives me like a summation. Okay. So it says day 2, not day 2, 2 new witnesses today. Dawn Richards, she was terrible. She testified to nothing that directly contradicted her interviews or flat out left out things she said happened, such as Diddy threats at his house in Miami. Next, it was Carrie Morgan. She didn't say anything new. Same type of shit we heard from Cassie. Nothing to advance the sex trafficking in Rico. Diddy's personal assistant testified. This is assistant from 2007 to 2009, David James. He testified to overhearing a conversation Diddy had regarding Cassie being young and having her right where he wants her, and that she was very moldable. There is a chef that Diddy assaulted taking a stand either tomorrow or Wednesday. So the assistant is saying he overheard a conversation that Diddy said about molding Cassie and stuff like that. So does that help the prosecutor?
It's not really the heaviest stuff going.
Yeah, so because I even said to you, because you said you read the indictments and stuff like that. I didn't know we went over it because you said
we did. It's
Oh,
14 pages of nonsense. Usually it takes 2 pages to make the charges in the typical federal indictment. But this time, the prosecution was attempting to inflame prospective jurors and make a political point. So the politics didn't work out the way they anticipated.
Right. So I don't know. Do you think this is a toss up? Because I'm just trying to figure out how can you say that someone was sex trafficking or racketeering, but when all these witnesses was just talking about, okay, he beat up his girlfriend and he was a freak.
She came back over and over again. How do we know it wasn't a case of sadomasochism? S&M, which seems to be quite into, I guess the other side would be called rough trade. So some people are into that. It's S&M is a typical sexual fetish. So how do we know that's not what we're dealing with?
And can you turn that into a RICO, sex trafficking, racketeering?
Some people tried hard, but you see what the federal government has been allowed to do procedurally in criminal matters for the last 45 plus years, thanks to Joe Biden, Eastland, Stennis, Byrd, etc., and a crew of I'm going to be tough on crime folk. They have allowed the federal prosecution to file charges with little to no chance of winning, but with the purpose of silencing the targeted opponents.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good. Federal trials are essentially trial by ambush. If you've got a pristinely innocent defendant, it's very hard because you don't know where the feds are coming from, and you have to go through a lot of motions and effort to get a clue as to what they're doing. But in this case, they put 14 pages of this is where we are going, this is how horrible it was, with apt descriptions of all sorts of things that had little to do with the proof necessary to establish the charged offenses. So it is what it is. It needs to be ended because that's what you have the Bill of Rights to prevent. What is that? The use of the criminal process for political purposes. And I said from the very beginning that there is a distinctly nasty odor wafting from this whole case, that it was brought to protect certain people from being negatively impacted by their freaks over the last 15 years that Diddy is supposedly to have kept recordations of in the entertainment industry, that is protecting yourself by getting blackmail information on the opposition like they have on you, if you're into that kind of thing. And also it deals with a cadre of adults who spent their entire lifetimes devoted to make believe and fantasy. And that type tends to have strange attitudes about life, and they seek sensationalistic entertainments that are heavy on impact. That also goes for some political types.
Well, I don't know. And I think, yeah, because I know I asked you this a couple of times if you think he's going to get off or not, and it's really up to the jury.
I have no idea. I'm not impressed with the federal prosecution at this point, but no telling what they'll get out of a jury.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot will depend on whether the judge delivers the appropriate charges to the jury and puts them in writing and supplies it to them. They very seldom touch on these things when they do dramatic representations of how criminal justice works. One of the most profoundly important aspects of a case consists of the charges that the judge delivers to the jury. And they're boring to most people, including the lawyers, who spend a lot of wasted time by not listening to the instructions. So if they ever have another trial, which sometimes is quite not the case, they can be aware of what they're going to have to prove or disprove in order to prevail. So people, including lawyers, tend to zone out when they're dealing with the charges, except sometimes the juries.
You know,
And mass media pays scant attention to these crucial charges. But the rule is the jury will be judges of the fact and the law under the direction of the court, and the court is the source from which they are to get the law. So if the court gives the wrong law to the jury, then the matter is never settled, and it'll go back to trial if the jury got the wrong law. So it's very important, but it's hardly ever paid attention to.
there are a lot of women, there's some men, but more so women are here saying he groomed her, he groomed her. And that is because, he's 15 years older than
Oh,
her.
that's nonsense. There are women with husbands 20, 25 years younger than they are. The concept of boy toy is still a reality. and women are supposed to be the equal of men. So how do you say one of them's going to get groomed? And remember, I'm an adult. I'm 16 years old. You can't tell me what to do. And then when it backfires, you got groomed, or somebody said or used their maturity or their experience over me. That doesn't wash out because it doesn't match the equality of sexes that is supposed to be preeminent these days. You're either equal or you're not.
Right. And do you think because the age difference that can
No,
sway the jury to say
no.
maybe he,
You got a young lady relying upon, you got a young woman, I don't know if she's a lady or not, young female, relying upon her youth and good looks to get somewhere, get lots of money, lots of influence, not lots of fun and position. And that went on for more than a decade. Just think about it. You can leave, nobody's locked you in a room, you're not being guarded by anybody. You can take off and go anytime you want. You have enough cash in pocket to go anywhere you want, but you stay there for 11 years. Why? Because you like it. And
now
they want to say the woman was so weak. I just don't buy it. Pretty women are not weak. They have something they can put to use anytime they wish, and they do. Remember, they have sugar daddies that they coerce into taking care of them. They blackmail husbands into leaving their wives. They have a lot of fun. They do things that ordinary women never get a chance to do. So they're supposed to be the victim now of their own assets. I don't buy that.
and also so she settled with Diddy last year and got 20 million. However,
Yeah, $20 million, and now she's supposed to be helpless. I don't buy it.
and she originally asked 30 million from him, but they settled for 20. However, last week, at the end of last week of her testimony, it came out, Diddy lawyers said, you just got awarded another $10 million. And she said, yes, from the Intercontinental Hotel with a videotape of him being
Yeah, and then also remember, she's pregnant by her current husband.
right.
And you have to say, you got to prove to me you weren't enjoying this. Well, baby, he made me do it. I want to see it. So how much does new hubby have to do with her sudden reversal?
Right. So she made her $30 million mark, 20 from Diddy and 10 from the hotel that came. She got that a week ago. So it's like, yeah, you can't, and I always say this, you can't be a victim and a victor at the same time. You got to pick one. So
And I represented a lot of prostitutes that wouldn't make $3,000 in a month for the pimps that they worked for. So she made $30 million out of the deal. So that's a lot of people never see 30 million in their lives. In fact, most won't even come close to it. So she made $30 million. She's married, pregnant, and she still has a pretty decent physical appearance. So in the scheme of things, she was successful. So now she wants to claim she was a victim of her own success.
that's a good way of putting it. Just
A
like
victim of her own success.
the victim that the woman is saying Shannon Sharp manipulated her, and he before they even broke out, before the news even broke, he was going to give her 10 million, but then she hired that lawyer Tony Busby and was now asking for 50 million. So I
Yeah,
guess
a lot
in
of
the
porn
same day,
stars never make 30 million in their careers, not even close. They're lucky if they make 3 million. And she made 30 million and she had a good time of it. So she was getting paid a lot while it was going on, a very high salary, it seems.
right.
So how many million did she make in total?
Well,
So it seems like she was a success doing what she wanted to do it. A whole lot of women have as an avocation. So
Yeah.
I don't buy into somebody is sucker enough to go along for 10, 11 years worth of getting victimized unless something.
Unless she was like a wife or a stay-at-home mom with a man when she has kids, no
Which she did.
job, right? Which she did not. So there are women who are in sometimes dead end situations, but that wasn't her case. You know,
And even the ones in the dead end situations aren't being forced to stay there. There is a thing called divorce.
there is, yes. And there are a lot of resources today as opposed, let's say, decades ago, right?
Well, this wasn't decades ago.
No, no, no.
This
I know. I'm talking about from the 50s. Like I'm talking about helping women.
well, it's not, but it's not the 50s. This is the
Right,
21st century.
exactly. Right. That's why you have like a whole lot of more resources today and and opportunities to get yourself out of the situation or to not put yourself in that situation. So yeah, I'm not team Diddy because he beats women, but to the law, I think the law is being abused here for a purpose that has nothing to do with justice.
Somebody beats you, leave. You might forgive them once or twice, but you claim this has gone on continuously for 10 years and you leave him. Remember, she went over to Africa one time or wherever it was she went it. So she wasn't even in the country. She didn't have to come back. She had her own independent means.
Mhm.
So what is it that brings you back over and over and over again for a decade?
Yeah.
Because you like it. You're into S&M, sadomasochism. And that they never talk about because that defeats the entire narrative that supports the agenda that so many propagandize for and seek.